Bryan Brown, welcome to the Preconstruction podcast.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm excited to talk to y'all.
Good, man. Well, I won't have any translation problems with you since your other partner was on recently on the podcast, Trevor Spring, and he's an Irish guy, so you'll understand me. No problem. He's from Cork as well, so my accent's bad, but his is worse.
His is definitely worse, so we'll definitely be good.
His is a whole different language. It's not even an accent.
That's right.
So for anybody that doesn't know you, Bryan, give us a quick kind of bio of your background, where you come from and what you're currently doing.
Yeah, so currently I'm a partner and co-founder of ChalkLine Construction, but previously spent the last decade or so in pre-construction heavily as an estimator, pre-con manager, and director of pre-con. Actually hold a master's degree in architecture from Northeastern University in Boston. So in college, I actually started going down the construction path instead of the design path, and really just fell in love with it, and just kind of the business side of that as well. Like I said, I went to school in Boston. I grew up in the Northeast, just north of Philadelphia. So huge 4-4 Philly sports guy, living here in Austin, Texas. So having a great time here. Business is booming. As Elon Musk said, it's a boom town for the next 50 years in Central Texas. So happy to be a part of it.
It is. There's no doubt about that. And even before he made the announcement and kind of started the rumblings that he was moving down there, it was still the same. I mean, I was in Dallas January 2020, and Dallas was booming at that stage as well. And I know, listen, the majority of America, there was plenty happening, but it just seemed like, and there's certain cities around the US that there's, like, I put it on LinkedIn recently, we've got 6 hotbeds right now, and Dallas and Austin are part of that 6. And I mean, we've all got reasons for relocating down there, and we'll go into that at the very end, but let's bring it all the way back. Architecture. You mentioned there the design side. What made you take architecture, and then what made you fall in love with the actual construction side?
Yeah, so growing up, I always, my mom never let me play video games, so I was always a Legos, Lincoln Long guy, able to drawing. I'm an only child, so passing the time, just a lot of drawing, and just, fascinated with buildings growing up. And then watched a lot of, I don't know if you know American television, This Old House on PBS, public broadcasting, right, every Saturday. For whatever reason it was on, and, just started watching those shows and just got into, houses and building and drawing. So I was fortunate enough in my high school program, actually had a pretty good technical drawing class that actually led to a kind of a pre-architecture class my junior and senior year. So by the time, I was applying to college, I already kind of knew I wanted to keep going in the architecture path. I was pretty good at it, really liked it. So was able to get into architecture that way. And then obviously that kind of accelerated me freshman year. Anyone who's been in architecture school kind of understands what that's like. It's, you drown pretty fast, the kind of unrealistic expectations for college. You see people partying and doing all this stuff, and you end up sitting in the architecture lab for, 8 hours till 3 a.m, drinking 4 Red Bulls and 5 coffees and just drawing and seeing everyone having fun outside. So it's different, but I was kind of prepared for that. And really enjoyed it. So
I envy you. I honestly do. You're one of the lucky ones. You knew exactly what you wanted to do even through high school. The majority of people are lost at that stage, and as you say, they're still partying and going, will I do a bit of IT? Will I do a bit of construction? But that was good. And then obviously masters in architecture. She obviously really, really liked it. Went and did your masters, so highly qualified. What was your thinking then, or what was the plan after that?
So I think my goal was always just kind of to push through architecture school. It's kind of a dual path at some point. So at my school at Northeastern, it's a pretty heavy co-op school. It's one of the best in the country for co-ops, just kind of across the board, all majors. So my first co-op, actually my first 2 co-ops, I actually worked for the university in their capital projects group as an assistant project manager. So I was kind of thrown into the construction side pretty fast. It was actually really, being in architecture school, you don't get exposure to, all the construction elements. It's kind of more ideas and theories and, just kind of understanding how building programs go together and massings and those kind of, pretty early, what we'd call, concept SD processes now. It's kind of what they teach you there, just to kind of understand, what gets you set up for clients and how buildings go together. But, once I was in the construction field, actually understanding how buildings go together, working with the GC every day, walking the trade, that was actually my exposure to being, what you'd call probably a project engineer now at a general contractor. I got to do that in college full time twice for 6-7 months. So I think that actually helped accelerate my pre-con career as well, being able to work in the field, understand how buildings go together, the process in which the GC takes, how RFIs are processed, how change orders are processed, how you're finding clashes in the field. I got to see all that while in school. So I think that really helped me a lot. But then also kind of pushed once I got back into school. It's like, man, I kind of miss being in the field and just seeing the whole collaborative process from that side. So I think, by the time I got it to the end of architecture school, I think it was still pulling me towards the construction side.
Yeah, that's it. But that's what I love about co-op. I was the same in my degree. I was the opposite though. I did electrical engineering, and when I went, they don't call it co-op in Ireland. They call it a placement year. So it's you have a 4-year degree. You study for 3 years, but the third year you go on site and get some work experience for a year. Within, I would say, 6 weeks of my year placement, I said, this ain't for me. And obviously I went through with it, did my placement year and then finished my degree, but I just knew. And I think, would there be a way of doing that even before you select your degree? I think that would be amazing if you could go and try out construction, IT, legal, HR, whatever it may be, your passion, and then go, you know what? I like that. I didn't realize that that's what that was. And I think construction's got a bit of that, because everybody thinks you're just got welly boots on and hard hats and getting mucky and building blocks, whereas it's so much more complex. So that's brilliant. The dual way of education is the way forward. Study in the classroom and then do it. So you perfect background. And then you did that for a little bit, and then you got into HVAC with Train. Talk me, how did that come about, and how important has that been for you?
Yeah. I wouldn't call it fluky. It's just kind of a big believer in all the things happen for a reason. So in 2012, about a decade ago, moved to Texas, follow my now wife. She's from Texas. I'm from the Northeast. So after she graduated, I moved down to Texas, and, fresh out of college, obviously a new place, just trying to get my traction rolling. Was able to land a job at a GC in San Antonio, small one, finish out contractor. So a little more of the same like I did while in school, kind of a jack of all trades, project manager, estimator, superintendent, running jobs. And, fresh out of school, that kind of burns you out pretty quick if it's, the one-man band. Great company, but, kind of wanted to get back into, learn kind of maybe more of a learning mode. And at that time we were transitioning from San Antonio to Austin. So I found an estimating job at Train that I applied to, and, they had a bit of hesitancy. Obviously I didn't have any, you don't learn any mechanical engineering, just, kind of the basic fundamentals of air conditioning in school and just, in life. I know, 95% of people probably don't even understand how their AC works at their house. But they took a risk on me, just understanding that I knew buildings and knew, kind of how buildings work and the estimating process, which was big for them. So yeah, jumped on with them in 2013 in their sales office in Austin. So they have a commercial systems group that sells its plan and spec bids. Every job in town in the region is bid basically, for every manufacturer, train carrier, JCI, all those, they all, bid against each other and they bid every job. So the good old world of hard bid at its best. That's it. And it's different than working at a GC. You're not even a sub trade. You're a third tier vendor. So you call it taking a beating.
That's a way to get grit and perseverance.
It really is. It teaches you time management. There were weeks where we would be bidding. It was myself and for a bit, it was myself and some other sales guys. And then it was, I was able to build out an estimating team around me at a young age. It was also, good opportunity to grow as in a managerial sense. But, there were weeks where you bid 12, 14, 15 jobs in a week.
Wow.
Anything from a school to a hospital, to stadium upgrades to, a strip center with a couple units on it, run the whole gambit. So pretty quickly, able to learn kind of the fundamentals of air conditioning, and then also just all the system types. I mean, you wouldn't, if you didn't know it, you wouldn't know it, but there's thousands of different ways to distribute air through buildings, and it depends on the type and the place, your climate zone, even just owner wants and wishes, and, the way you can control it now, and the technology has gotten so good. So, being able to work at a place like that and be taught everything, they would fly to the factories to show you all the different lines and teach you all the, ins and outs and nuts and bolts of every machine. I think was I'm super grateful for that, because it's kind of things you really, really need to understand it. But then it's just also kind of how my brain works. I'm kind of a nut and bolt guy too. So
I tell you what, though, that's a steep learning curve. Straight in there, lead estimator, working with the sales team, building a team as well. I mean, you're obviously a smart guy, but to be able to pick that up as quickly as you did and master it, essentially, because you left there as lead estimator. I mean, you were probably the main guy there.
Yeah. So I was able, at a pretty early age then, trust me to build out a team and then lead. I left a team of 4 people, and I think now they're probably up to 8. But able to jump into that side too. So yeah, not only just learning the curve of air conditioning and all the systems, but also, a plan and spec bid process in Central Texas, which is pretty, I wouldn't call it cutthroat, but maybe, I mean, everyone knows how hard bid works, but being at a vendor level, just seeing it from that side, just understanding, what they have to get to, the requests from subs, requests from DCs, kind of the push down on vendors, but then also, the really great partners that are above you and owners that understand kind of what they want and the needs and how it works. So you get to see kind of the full aspect of the entire business of how it works.
You know what to do and what not to do now to the lower guys. But I mean, even Bryan, like being able to build a team and manage people at such a young age, what did you learn early on? Because I mean, it's a great opportunity, because yourself, the only way you learn is to fail. Is there any kind of key things that you learned to even building a team at such a young age?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a, lead by example guy. Not one to speak up much. I will when I need to, but I'm definitely just kind of a, go do your job, work as hard as you can kind of thing. So I think early on for me, it was hard to delegate a lot. I'm used to just doing everything myself. So then, once you got a relief band of 2 other people there, and they're smart, probably smarter than me, and mechanical engineers out of the University of Texas and Texas A&M and these great schools, and it's just hard to let go of the rope sometimes and just let other people do their job and probably do it better than you, so you can actually zoom out and kind of pull the puppet strings a little bit to pull everyone in the same direction. So that was. I'm glad I got to see it early, because I think it's helping me now in terms of moving workload around, and it definitely helped me at Ryan at my next stop too. So, I was pretty grateful to be given that opportunity, and my mid-20s to lead and build a team. It doesn't happen to everyone, and I'm incredibly grateful for it.
Absolutely. And I have to say, even speaking and dealing with people all the time, pre-construction and estimators, it's the people that get exposure to the difficult things early on. I mean, you got exposure to 2 incredibly difficult pieces of construction, managing people and HVAC mechanical. I mean, if you've got those 2, you're in with a serious shout. We're not going to go into Ryan companies too much, because everybody understands and knows Ryan companies. We went through it with Trevor. Great company, great developer, great training. You went down there as estimator, grew your way up to director of pre-con within 4.5 years. Again, an incredibly steep kind of trajectory, and it just shows you the talent you have. the whole kind of ChalkLine thing, was that always in your DNA, the entrepreneurial kind of spirit that you had in you, or how did that come about?
I tell everyone no, but I guess it was. I was kind of picturing myself as kind of on that Ryan trajectory of, you get to lead a group of people. It's great. And, I don't knock working for, the Trains and Ryans of the world. They're great companies, really large. Ryan's a great family company. Train, obviously a Fortune 500 company. But at some point you start to realize, it kind of just tickles the back of your head. Like, man, I could probably do this myself. Especially with the relationships. You mentioned Trevor, myself and him, and our third business partner, Ryan Ritchie, have been working in this market for over a decade. Trevor closer to 20. Just talking to other people in the market too. It was right for opportunity. There's really too much work for any, call it 15 groups to handle. There really is a need for maybe 25, 30 contractors in this town, let alone the entire state. It's just outgrowing the supply of builders, and even subcontractors. You've seen it there too, that some groups are starting to spurt up out of these other larger groups, which I think is great. So I think once you start thinking about it, and the other thing is my wife owns her own business here in Texas. So just seeing her do that for the last 5 years, she was a teacher for 5 years. She got out of it, kind of grew her own vacation rental business from nothing. So just seeing how, kind of flexibility she had, and, just the way you get to kind of keep learning. You learn every day and just create your own thing. And there's something to be said about that. And, it's just different than grinding for, a group of other people. But you get to do it for yourself. And it's hard to explain to people how that feels, but it's pretty great. So I think you do. So
fair play to you guys. Let's give your wife's company a shout out, just in case anybody's gone down to Texas to Randall. What do you call it?
Yeah. It's Bonhost, Bonhost. She manages about 25 properties here in Central Texas, one down in South Padre. So
brilliant. There you are, folks.
Place to stay.
If you're coming down there, that's the only place to look. So yeah, I was always the same. But to me, it was service in the market. So within construction, huge industry. The staffing industry was just service, and project managers, superintendents, project engineers. There was nobody looking after pre-construction and estimating. So that was my driver. I was saying there's a massive opportunity here. Nobody's serving us. It's going to become, and it is now, the single most important part of construction is pre-construction. So that was my driver. What driver did you see within the market? Obviously, you mentioned there that the fact that there was just no competition. Well, not there was no competition. There was just so much work and not enough people to do it. Have you guys kind of eked out where you're going to target, how you're going to go about it, how you're going to be different?
Yeah, and it's kind of the formulation of the three of us, right? I think, even if it was two of us, it'd be a little riskier proposition. I think, always having a group of three is always stronger, especially the way we complement each other. Trevor and I are both pre-con heavy. Trevor's, a natural salesperson. Ryan has been in construction operations for 25 years. She's leading Ryan's construction ops here in Central Texas for a bit. So I think we all complement each other well. And then the other thing we saw when we were talking about this is the sophistication level of what we bring from what we brought from Ryan, and is, design build, design management, being able to sit in a room with an architect and jointly come up with a project that works for everyone, rather than just, yelling at each other and having banter back and forth about who's right and who's wrong. I think that's what sets us apart is, we've been doing this for years now, working with developers in-house, but, myself, Trevor, Ryan all led a design team as a design build group, and then successfully executed the projects on the back end as well. So I think that there's not a lot of group. People say they do design build. I think as a general contractor, and it's kind of marketing. There's a true essence to and nuance to design build, and that obviously heavily is pre-construction heavy, right? It's design management, it's budgeting, it's being able to do concept estimates on the back of a napkin in 20 minutes for a developer and be within 5%. just understanding market conditions, having really good subcontractor relationships. Those are the things we bring to the table. And we want to bring that, that there's huge companies out there, especially in Texas. Everyone's moving here. So, a lot of those groups have their own construction in-house groups or using third-party PM services, but there's a lot of owners that are moving here that really don't understand how it works. And Texas, especially, there's kind of a game within a game on the construction side. So there's a nuance to it that if you don't it's not like building a house. If you don't know how to sit whatever jurisdiction you're in, how the zoning is going to work, the entitlements, how the permitting process lasts. And often, it can be 9 months. It's kind of what it's been for the last several years, could be up to a year. Those are the things we all know. So, just being able to coach owners who want to build here, there's tons of opportunity to develop projects here. Just do it at the right way and just make sure it's set up at the beginning for success is the only way to do it. Otherwise, if you're behind budget, behind schedule from the jump, it's going to be a pretty messy project. So
yeah,
that's what we're looking to do, kind of smaller owners.
Totally agree with you. I mean, we had Bryan. Anybody hasn't caught Bryan Spring's episode of the podcast, it's going to be released probably a couple of days before this one. So catch that if you can. But Bryan kind of explained as well. I like the fact that it's 2 pre-con guys and then an ops guy, because we all know how important pre-con is, and especially if you're going in on the design build, because design build is becoming more sexy again, Bryan. I mean, that is the preferred choice with a lot of contractors, whether it be negotiated, design bid build, design build. So that'll help you a lot. And then, is there any kind of market that you're going after? Trevor did mention that the light industrial market, that's huge, obviously. And looking at his background, your background, and we haven't spoken to Richie. I mean, that looks like you guys are set up for that market.
Yeah, it's kind of our bread and butter, I guess, wheelhouse, what you call it. We executed some really mega projects for Ryan on the pre-con side, sales as well in Texas, some national clients as well. So hopefully we can carry some of those relationships with us and grow some though. But that light industrial is really what we're good at. Also, core and shell office. It's we've executed a few projects there as well that we could bring over. But that's our expertise is knowing those subcontractors, knowing how that process goes on the light industrial and office side. So that's what we're looking to get into ground up.
Brilliant. Love it. And then obviously being in Texas, the HVAC background will work wonders, because if you don't have HVAC in Texas, you're in trouble.
You're definitely struggling. There's never not a day where something's getting replaced. So I think that'll always be helpful.
And that space in particular, I mean, a lot of pre-construction and estimators will be listening to this podcast and going, you know what, that is my biggest gripe. It's the most complex, it's the most difficult thing to bid. A lot of people rely on subcontractors to get their numbers. How important is it having someone like you in-house to be able to pick up on small mistakes or small details that have been missing?
I think it's huge, and it's not just HVAC. I think having specialty estimators is huge. It can be drywall, it can be electrical, it can even be waterproofing, roofing. There's a lot of nuance within those trades that you're right. Just taking numbers off the street on bid day, even if you do your takeoff, even if you get in the spec, if you don't really understand that business and how they operate, and where they can make money. How many bids are they getting on their vendor side? How competitive is it? In the spec, who's specified? On HVAC, that's huge. There's games they play within the spec to just get locked in so they can make a sale. So there's things that once you come up to the GC or developer side, if you understand kind of the undercurrents of what's going on, I think it helps. Well, round out your number, round out the project, and just understand what's going on, just so you can kind of have a little more control. Just because with how busy everyone is, everyone just kind of relinquishes everything off to subs and just make sure they here's a set of big drawings and specs. You better have it. And if they turn around a number to be competitive and they miss some stuff or took liberties, they try to push that back on the sub. But at the end of the day, it's really the GC's responsibility or the builder's responsibility to make sure that's right. So I think the more technical experts you have on your team, I think the more solid your number is going to be. And then just the the way you portray yourself in your interview or to an owner, I think is huge.
Yeah, and you mentioned it before, the collaboration, the transparency. When you're sitting there in front of the client and he's saying, right, I want to build this, you're able to go quickly and go, right, this HVAC, this is the system we're going to use, this is how it's going to work, and this is generally what it's going to cost. And especially at that early stage, to get buy-in from the client, it's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually, there's a huge industrial client we have here in Texas. Well, I was at Ryan, and that was part of the interview process is, they went to a chill water system they've never built before. So we gave them basically 3 options, even in the proposal room. And I was, with my background, I was able to go straight to the vendor early, when they weren't even asking for that, and say, hey, can you price it up 3 different ways? I want to be able to show the client, like, hey, there's, here's your options, but here's a good, better, best. And then it depends on what you guys are looking for, longevity. So I think they really appreciate it. The thoroughness, but also just being able to break down fundamentally so they could understand their options. So it's not just, a black box of, okay, you're getting this for X amount of dollars. It's here's the pros and cons for each. We want to be open book with you guys. It's your building, right? At the end of the day, it's not any of our projects. It's great to say we did them, but there's an owner at the end of the day who gets the keys, and we want to make sure they're comfortable with what they're buying. So I think it's definitely huge to anyone who needs, a technical savvy people. I think it's big for your group.
Brilliant. Love it. Great. And great advice there. And Bryan, so a lot of people will be listening to this now within pre-construction, within operations, within construction, and going, you know what? I would love to do that. I would love to kind of bite the bullet and go out on my own. I mean, it's a huge risk to anyone. I mean, Trevor kind of went through the whole finance, getting investors and stuff like that. But what does a day look like in the day in the life of an entrepreneur who stepped out on his own? What do you guys, what do you be doing, especially on your side? Are you just bidding all the time, negotiating, speaking with clients? What does it look like?
All of that.
Yeah. And more.
Yeah. Yeah. A little different, it's not an 8 to 5 deal anymore and weekends off. Now it's like, man, I got to crank open the laptop at maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Something just came up. We have an opportunity that it's, we're late to the game, but they like what we're about. So, we got to get a number over to them by Friday. It's Tuesday. So a little bit of a hair on fire mentality, but I think we're all kind of built for that. Again, having 3 people is great, bouncing, one person can take the insurance call. One person can, go to lunch with this client, and this person can be calling subs for a job we're bidding. So, I think it's great to have a group. I think doing it by yourself would be impossible on the commercial side. It's one thing to probably, go hang a shingle and build houses on your own, or, do tenant finish outs for, a nail salon. But, what we're trying to do ground up, design, build, commercial construction or development it takes a group, but it's nonstop, but that's why we're doing it too. It's, a little more flexibility. If I got to, take my dog to the vet at 2 o'clock, I don't have to ask a boss. It's just go do it. And we all have each other's backs, and we understand that the work's going to get done. And, if it does drop, it hasn't yet, I think any one of us will be pretty quick to step up and tell someone to pick it up. But, I think we all complement each other well in that aspect, and we're all working for each other now. So that's the best part, working for our families, and trying to grow this thing and grow a business too, and hopefully hiring some people here soon and get to see that side as well.
Exciting times, I have to say. So I didn't ask Trevor this, but ChalkLine, talk me through the name, or who came up with that, or how did that come about?
Yeah. So I think we were just, everyone seems to have either like a star in her name or just initials of the owners. And, that's all great. Probably could have came up with something good, but, we started, how do these tech companies, how these tech startups, these new companies kind of name themselves? And we all just started talking about, man, they're all one word, pretty catchy. If you type in the web browser, just one word, it pops up. So we started thinking through what one word things could we use in construction that describes this. So as actually, Trevor asked his daughters to think it up. He said, think of a tool that kind of revolutionized the construction industry or helps a lot in the construction industry. So I came up with a few, but ChalkLine was the one that stood out as that's pretty innovative and creative and pretty simple.
Brilliant.
So hopefully eventually just have that as our
Yeah.
tagline without GC on the tag. Got to make a little more money first before we can buy.
That's a little bit of work to do on the branding side, but you'll get there.
Yeah.
You'll get there. But yeah, I mean, Entrpreneur, it's not easy. Me and my wife stepped out in 2017, and tell you what, for the first 2 years, it's tough going. There's no doubt about it. And people don't understand. I mean, the majority of startup companies generally either sink or swim within the first, I think it's nearly like 14, 16 months. So once you get through that, you get a couple of projects under your belt, you've actually got something tangible to show people and say, listen, we've done this. You guys will kill it. So I'm looking forward to seeing, as Trevor said, I'm looking forward to seeing him flying his private jet. He says he'll either be under the bridge or flying his private jet. So just before I let you go, Bryan, because this has been brilliant insight into and for everyone. Austin, Texas, it is booming. We talked about it before. The whole of Texas is booming, but Austin in particular, everyone seems to be moving there. What's so good about Austin, and what are you most excited about? If there was someone pre-con estimating looking to relocate there, what can they expect if they land there?
Yeah, Austin, it's kind of the draw even 10 years ago for me. When I first got to San Antonio, we'd visit Austin. It's an hour drive north. And there's something about, the way the city's set up, just the culture, the vibe. It kind of reminded me of more of a Northeast city. I'm grew up just north of Philadelphia. Went to school in Boston. So the Texas cities, Dallas, Houston, the big cities are all really spread out, great cities, but really spread out. Austin's more downtown centric, which I think is kind of the vibe people like. But then obviously, the food's amazing. Has the vibe of being really laid back. There's great outdoor amenities around. Hill Country is where I live, about an hour west. Beautiful scenery, good water activity. So I think there's just a lot for everyone. It's not just a big concrete jungle. There's lots of people to see and do, and it's kind of centered in Texas too. You can be in Houston 2.5 hours. You can be in Dallas in 3 hours. So there's San Antonio is an hour away. So I think it's nice center of hub. I think even businesses are starting to realize that, you can centralize there and Spoke and be, in the center of business in Texas, pretty easily, and then obviously, tax burden's low and cost of living still relatively low, I think to others, but rapidly increasing. But
it's only going to go one way.
That's right. But yeah, still a great place. And there's something about it's hard to explain, but there's tons of opportunity here. That there's someone who's is an economist or deals in real estate, and just said Austin's growth like this, has potentially a full decade trajectory of the same growth, which is crazy. I mean, you're talking about Silicon Valley from early 90s. Again here. So, that's what's being mentioned. So I don't not see that. The only thing that could slow it down maybe is traffic and, too much congestion. People may bail and prices, but, I feel like all that kind of works itself out, but the Central Texas will be booming. I mean, Texas in general, but especially Central Texas will be booming here for the next decade. So there's tons of work to be done.
I'm looking forward to visiting, and I want to see ChalkLine on a crane in the middle of everything.
That's the goal. It says we need another dozen GCs. Hopefully we're one of them in the mix, and, doing some really cool projects here. There's a lot of great owners and great opportunities. So
brilliant.
Happy to jump in the mix.
And I always like asking, especially entrepreneurs and people who've started up their own business. And what do you think? Is there anything different that you've done throughout your career that you not even your career, like your morning routine, or is there anything piece of advice that you would like to give younger people, maybe just graduates or people just coming into the pre-construction world?
Yeah, so there's actually a couple things, jump at the opportunity and do that. I think it's invaluable, even for a year, 6 months, 2 years. Early on, if you can get dirty and work as a field engineer, or some way to get in a job where, you walk back in the office and there's someone, 10 years a senior, 20 years a senior, and you can walk them through a set of documents or say, hey, on this job, I did X, it saved us X amount of time, or, this detail is much simpler and saves you X amount of dollars. That goes a long way for, reputation, and just understand just people knowing that you know your stuff, and you're not just learning it through calling subs and reading drawings, even though that's a great way. Pre-con, you can do it without being in the field. I just think it's that much more valuable. I was able to do it super early on in my career, and I think it's helped me immensely understanding how buildings go together, which, at the end of the day, that's like a fundamental deal for pre-con people. You just need to understand assemblies and understand how everything goes together. You're not just assembling numbers from divisions. You just have to understand how the building goes together.
Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah.
And was there a second thing? Because that's great advice. I mean, it's something that we always say. Was there another thing there? Yeah,
I think, just understanding, again, just going back to understanding the building. If you don't know something, ask, don't be afraid. I think a lot of people are timid in the office environment. If they don't know something, they just try to, wouldn't say cover it up, but maybe just kind of dance around it and avoid it, rather than just saying, hey, I don't understand how that works. Or can you show me, or, if you screw it, like if you get a proposal in and there's a $500,000 spread on paint bid, or, electrical bid has $1 million spread. We see that all the time. A lot of us don't know the details of what makes that up. Start by, understanding the bid with subs, but, if you need more help, don't be afraid to ask someone. I promise there's someone in the office who has more experience than you. There always is, and is willing to help, because obviously they understand that making you better is going to make the whole group better. But, I think they're going to respect you more too for coming to you and asking for help, rather than just trying to either avoid it or, maybe pass it on to someone else to do it. I think that also, helps bring your voice forward if you're looking to get promoted, or just growth in general.
Unbelievable, Bryan. That one in particular is one that I keep harping on about. Believe it or not, I was 29 when I realized that is a key component. Unbelievable, right?
Big.
I was probably a little bit arrogant, a little bit cocky at the time. Thought I knew everything until I was 29. Then I just started asking questions, and then it kind of got out of control, and was just all I did was ask questions. But what I learned from 29 to probably 31, 32 was incredible. And you don't get it. And what it does as well, the more questions you ask, the more that you can figure out who the good people are within a company or within an organization.
That's right.
Because they're willing to give up the time to improve you. It just means they're a nice person. They're good. And there's always 3 or 4 very good mentors out there. And we try to do that now as well in our shop. If you can get yourself under the wing of a good mentor, it can expedite your learning, your development, but also your ability to climb the ladder quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, within pre-con, if you have, there's good groups within groups. And then, if your whole group and in your office is, clicking on all cylinders, it makes a world of difference. Some of the best work we did was, 1:30 in the morning, a group of 5 of us in a room, and just bouncing stuff off each other, making sure it was right, challenging someone else, and not just to badger someone, just to one, make sure it's right, and 2, just understanding the end product will be better if we all are on the same, pulling the same way, and understanding that it's all going the same direction. So
absolutely.
I think that's big.
I would say you've got a lot of 1:30 in the mornings between yourself, Richie, and Trevor. I would love to.
Yeah, not always work. It's not always work either.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in those conversations.
Well, it's a good time.
But it's brilliant. I mean, the background wise, it sounds amazing. It sounds exciting. I'm excited to see it growing, honest to God. If there's anybody listening to this and they've got any follow-up questions, or Bryan, where's the best place to get you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out and message me. I'm on there pretty actively. And we can start from there. But yeah, happy to help anyone if you have any questions or want to reach out, and happy to help.
Brilliant. Bryan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Really looking forward to seeing ChalkLine grow. I'll be in Austin soon for about 2 years.
Yeah, come on. We love to have a good time. So happy to have you here. Come on down to Austin.
Cheers, Bryan.
All right, man. Appreciate it.